we will be focusing on Module 1, or the fundamental concepts of art. And we will be having 2 lessons under this module. And the lesson that we will be focusing now will be lesson 1.1, and it has something to do with the art overview. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, you are expected to identify basic concepts of art as the standpoint of an in-depth comprehension of its underlying topics. Next, you are expected to differentiate subfields of art, and finally to clarify and give light to the misconceptions of art. Okay. So now, we have here a lot of questions. First is, what is art? How would you define art? How can you use the basic knowledge of art in deep understanding of masterpieces? How can we relate to artworks on their basic level? Do you think there are things you know about art wherein it is generally not true? So we will be answering these questions along with our discussion. So for many people, art is a specific thing. It could either be a painting, sculpture, or photograph, a dance, a poem, or a play. So it is all of these things and more. They are actually mediums or tools of artistic expressions. Okay, so meaning and significance of art. According to Webster's New Collegiate Dictionary, art is defined as the conscious use of skill and creative imagination, especially in the production of aesthetic objects. But art is much more than tools or words on a page. It is the actual expression of our experience. Kumbaga, this is the presentation of what we are thinking or what we are feeling. Okay? So, art was actually derived from a Latin word ars, meaning ability or skill, and the Aryan word ar, which means to put things together. So, if you put these 2 words together, we will come up with this definition. Art is the ability or skill to put things together. Okay, so a work of art is an activity that involves both the imagination and skill in accomplishing it. So we find arts in the clothes and accessories we wear, in the design of our furniture and furnishings, in the style of the houses we build, and the vehicles we use. So in other words, art is everywhere. Okay, so for the benefit of those who will not be able to attend our online class, these are the questions for our journal prompt number 1. Okay, so the title will be Expose Yourself to Art, and these are the questions. What has been your exposure to art? Do you make art? If so, what kind? What is the medium or tool you use? And if you haven't made any art, have you ever wanted to, or what kind? But I guess I don't, or I won't believe that nobody has ever created anything artsy. Okay, so could be said, or even when we were in elementary or in high school, we were asked to do projects that are related to art. Okay, so for whatever reason or for whatever it is, just write everything in your journal. Okay, so next, let's talk about the history of art. So art history is the study of human expression, not limited to visual, but also tactile, meaning touch, spatial, okay, and oral, according to the time where it was made. So art is uniquely human and tied directly to culture. Do you agree? Okay, so it takes the ordinary and makes it extraordinary. Kasi when we talk about art, it actually somewhat defines a culture. So it asks questions about who we are, what we value, the meaning of beauty, and the human condition. As an expressive medium, it allows us to experience sublime joy, deep sorrow, confusion, and clarity. And it gives voice to ideas and feelings, connects us to the past, reflects with the present, and anticipates the future. And along these lines, art history combined with anthropology and literature are 3 main sources in observing, recording, and interpreting our human past. You see, art is also used even in history. Okay, so we are not only focused on the history of art itself, but rather the history of humankind and culture. Okay, so it is true that art is something that we cannot easily define. Okay, so yet it is seen everywhere. True. It is the clothes you wear, the films you watch, the music you hear, or the song you sing. Even the movement in a dance is considered as art. Art also is there to remind us that something beautiful or ugly can bring our mood to different direction. Because of this, how we define art is in essence a question of agreement. Okay, so there are actually three assumptions of art. First is that art is universal, which means that anywhere you go, art is everywhere, just like what I've mentioned a while ago. And the relativity of art has no boundaries. Everyone can relate to it regardless of time, place, race, culture, nor civilization. And art is not nature, the second assumption of art, because it is made through the artist's skill, coordinated with rigorous and various processes, planning, ideas, and feelings imparted creatively in an aesthetical sense, meaning art is not there automatically. It is something that is being created, okay, or something that has been created by a human, okay? So the last assumption of art is it involves experience, and this is actually true. As one immerses through art, depicting one's life experience can be replicated and attached to it. It mirrors feelings and emotions at the moment of its creation. That is why they say that in the process of creating an art, it's actually when you are feeling extreme emotions, when you are feeling extreme emotions, that's the time that you will be creating something magnificent, okay? So something artistic. This is the exact reason why I am always telling my students and other people that no matter where you go, kumbaga kung bisan haing ka and any time of the day, just bring with you a piece of paper or something na pwede niyo masuratan, because you do not know when $1 million thought or idea will come to you, okay? So the role of creativity in art making. Of course, when you do art, creativity is the #1 factor of it, okay? So it requires thinking outside the box. So when we say creative, it is something that is, kumbaga, that is unusual. So in art, creativity is what sets apart one artwork from another. Because look at this, for example, this image or this illustration. There are different illustrations of an apple. So you may be seeing 3 apples, although they have different structures, they are all apples. So nowadays, being creative can be challenging, of course, kasi not everyone has actually that creative juices nga nagpo-flow every time. So if you tell a person to draw an apple, just like this example, each person will have their own interpretation of how an apple can look like. It is the same in all aspects of the creative world, and same subject but with different executions as seen in his example or in this example. This is the exact reason why I'm saying no matter how some other people imitate your output, they will never imitate how you created the output. Okay, so saying pa, I can imitate you, but I can never duplicate you. Okay, so now let's think about this one. When can we say that something is creative? Okay, so first, when we have not seen anything like it. Okay, so that falls under the definition of creative, or when it is out of the ordinary, meaning it is not the usual, when it is not just a copy or imitation of someone's work, and when there is originality and uniqueness. So that's when we say that something is creative. Okay, so imagination, according to Albert Einstein, is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we know, or we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. And actually, imagination is not constrained by the walls of the norm, but it goes beyond that. Kaya amo nga nasa ring nga, it is, or something that is outside of the box is considered as creative. Okay, so through imagination, you are able to craft something bold, something new, and something better in the hopes of creating something that will stimulate change. That is why no one can ever steal your ideas, because it is your own imagination. Okay, so in an artist's mind sits a vast gallery of artworks. An artwork does not have to be a real thing, but can be something that is imaginary. However, something imaginary does not necessarily mean it cannot be called art. So artists use their imagination that gives birth to reality through creation. In other words, imagination is sitting pa the brainchild, and then the output is the creation. And in the same way, that imagination produces art, and art also inspires imagination. So imagination gives way to your personal life. Another thing is expressing emotion or emotions is different from describing emotions, of course. So it's easy for us to describe it, but it's not that easy to express it. This makes people's art not a reflection of what is outside or external to them, but a reflection of their inner selves. Have you ever wondered kung ano ang nagiging inspiration of some arts or some songs or some dance? Of course, people will say, that person wrote that song. Or yes, that person wrote or has written that song. But of course, may that is inspiration. Probably an inspiration or an experience of him, his own experiences, or an experience of some other people that he or she has observed. And for Robin George Collingwood, what an artist does to an emotion is not to induce it, but to express it. Through expression, he is able to explore his own emotions and at the same time create something beautiful out of them. That is why people who are full of emotions can actually create the best arts in the world. Okay, now let's move on to journal prompt number 2. And now, let's be creative. So let's explore your creativity. We will have a first test on an artistic work. So try to design a unique chair. Just to remind you, don't be pressured, okay? So just be yourself and just let your emotions and ideas flow outside. So give a short description of your design and then tell me what makes it unique, and can you consider it as something creative? So create it in your art journal, and then I will tell you how to submit it. Okay? So while creativity and imagination are the inspiration phase in the concrete world, the here and the now, the ideation phase is actually the formation of something into the abstract world. So the inspiration phase ends with the development of insights based on an immersion of collected thoughts resulting in the actual creation of an artwork. So the process of creativity is threefold, with first, the artist is the prime mover, communicating an idea through the second, performer, as the interpreter to the third, audience. So there are actually three aspects of in the process of creativity. So the first one is the artist, the second is the performer, and the third is the interpreter, which are the audience. So each participates actively in the creative process. Although in the case of the reader, the observer or the listener, the intensity of the activity may be less than that of the artist who produced the work. Okay, so the gravity of the jobs between the two is just the same. Okay, so you as a creator and then you as the perceiver or the receiver of the art form. So there are three major phases in the process of creation. So let's look into this one. The first is the artist must have an idea. Okay, so this is the first process. So the second, he must have a material to work on, and finally, he must give form to his idea, because kung halimbawa, usahin niya irang atuluwaray, then there will be no creation. Okay? So, artists are highly sensitive persons, especially aware of the things that surround them. True. Kasi there are some songwriters nga, bisan halimbawa, may dala usa nga thing na nakitaan can create a song about that thing. Okay? So, or something he or she kumbaga, came across with na siguro hamot, itsura, or something can create a song out of those things. Okay, so they notice the sounds, colors, and movements of people and things. Art expression is based on the so-called higher senses of sight and sound, and with the other senses playing more or less indirect roles. So a particular experience may impress an artist so much that he decides to use it as the basis for a picture, a poem, a play, or a dance. Sige lang. You try to listen to songs and read the lyrics. So when you read the lyrics, you can say or you can tell that there is a story behind that lyrics, okay, or behind that song. Okay, now, another thing about this. So how do we really create art? Okay, so this is the question. So when we use our imagination, emotion, and experience. So that's the first part. And when we explore materials to convey our thoughts and expressions, when we are able to combine our ideas and our tools to make something, and when we have successfully translated our imagination, emotion, and experience into a concrete form. So this is how we create an art. Okay, again, you would only have to have the 3 ideation process. You must have the idea, the materials or tools, and then the organization or form. Okay? And now after the 2 journal prompts, let's have some art output. Okay, so we have here a coffee painting. So here are the materials in the creation process. You need 1 sheet of paper. You don't need to buy Oslo paper or vellum board or sketchpad sheet. Bisan an ordinary na lang nga bond paper. And a pencil and eraser, or bisan diri bond paper, book paper rather nala kay para mas madurudak mo. Okay, so again, pencil and eraser, 1 black coffee stick, paintbrush, small mixing dish. It could be a saucer or a plastic cup, and then a glass of clean water, and then a cloth rag or tissue. So here are the directions. Follow the prompts that best agree with your personality or experience. Again, don't create an art to impress me, but rather create it to express what you are feeling or what you are thinking. So think of an image that describes your childhood or whatever it is that you have in mind. Okay? So use your pencil to draw thin outlines of your image, and then carefully render your outline drawing using the mixed coffee and water. So tip, for darker tones, use a few drops of water and more of the coffee powder. And if you want to make the color lighter, drop more water into your coffee powder until you get the desired color. And then, create a title for your artwork. So this is important. Okay, and hang your artwork to dry or tape it to a wall overnight, and do not cover with paper. And then finally attach it to your journal. And by the way, when it comes to creating your title, during our question and answer, you will be asked why you chose or why you have chosen that title. So this is the rubric, or how you will be graded on your how you will be graded Hanimo output. So we have 4 categories, and that includes creativity, material application and techniques, title, and then completion. So you will be graded 30 to 24 if you are an artist. Okay, so meaning you created something exceptional. Then 14 to 23, developing artist, and then novice or beginner if you garnered a total of 0 to 13 points. So by this rubric, you will understand, you will be able to know kung pera ito yung magagarner na score. Okay? And for the last journal prompt, so we have 3 journal prompts, and then we will be having 2 outputs for this lesson. So lesson 1.1 pala kita. The third and final journal prompt is this one. So you have to answer these questions briefly. Write down your thoughts in your art journal. First is, what is the meaning of your coffee painting? The second is, how did you create your artwork? And then finally, describe your general art making process. Okay, so let's take a break from the discussion. I have to cut this first because you might have difficulty opening this file. Thank you, and I will continue in a separate video.